All right, let's dive in. This time, we're all about the hunt for Gollum. It's a new Lord of the Rings film, and we've got articles, YouTube videos, all sorts of stuff to give us a sneak peek. We're going to break it all down for you, give you the inside scoop on this new chapter in Middle-earth. And the focus, well, it's all about our favorite creepy crawler, Gollum.
Yeah, and what really caught my eye is this film seems to be tackling a part of the Lord of the Rings timeline that, well, we've never actually seen on screen before.
Oh.
Yeah, it takes place between Bilbo's birthday party in Fellowship of the Ring and Frodo leaving for Rivendell.
Huh. It's wild to think about all that stuff happening off-screen during those, like, supposedly peaceful years in the Shire.
Right.
And it sounds like the hunt for Gollum is going to pull back the curtain on like all those key events that led up to the main story. The sources we've got, they point to the film zeroing in on Gandalf getting suspicious about Bilbo's ring.
Mm-hmm.
He starts to realize it's not just some random trinket, so he sends Aragorn off to find Gollum. He's hoping to get to the bottom of where that ring really came from.
Makes sense. I mean, Gollum had that ring for, what, centuries. He knows its power, its secrets better than anyone.
Oh, yeah.
Gandalf, being the wise dude he is, he figures Gollum's the key to understanding what that ring truly is.
Yeah.
And think about the psychological impact, too. This film could really dive into how the ring messed with Gollum's mind, show us how it twists even the strongest minds over time.
Right.
And you've got to imagine the torture Gollum went through when Sauron had him.
Oh, yeah.
Forced to spill the beans, give up the name Baggins in the Shire, gave Sauron everything he needed.
Chills, man, chills. Tolkien only hinted at that in the books, but to actually see it play out on screen, hear Gollum's cries, man, that's got to be heavy. Makes you wonder what other dark secrets this film's going to unearth. They're saying it's going to, like, really dig deep into Gollum's backstory, his whole psychology, even more than the other films.
This is where Andy Serkis, being both Gollum and the director, is just genius. The guy, he gets this character. I mean, he's lived with him for years.
True.
They could show us Smeagol's life before the ring took over, maybe flashbacks to his Hobbit days,
Yeah.
Show that stark contrast.
I heard Peter Jackson himself say he always wanted to explore parts of Gollum's life that the earlier films just, like, didn't have the time for.
Right.
To show us his descent into madness. And think about this. What if Serkis uses Gollum's like internal voice, that back and forth, to really convey his thoughts, his struggle?
Whoa.
That would be wild. A really unique way to tell the story.
Totally. Seeing the world through Gollum's eyes, experiencing that tug of war between Smeagol and Gollum, his desire for the ring, the pain it causes. It's a fascinating concept and honestly could be kind of heartbreaking. It makes you ask, will they portray him more as a victim of the ring or lean into his darker side?
Makes me think about the whole idea of the One Ring and how it corrupts, We know it twists even the purest hearts, but to see it happen to Gollum over centuries...
Yeah.
Man, that could be a powerful, unsettling look at addiction and, like, the dark side of power.
Definitely. It adds a whole other layer to the Lord of the Rings saga. We see how the ring affects Boromir, even Frodo, but Gollum, his story, it's like the ultimate cautionary tale.
Right.
His whole life becomes a testament to how seductive, how destructive that ring really is.
Sounds like this film could be like a deep character study disguised as a Middle-earth thriller.
And thankfully, the team behind it seems to know what they're doing. The original Lord of the Rings crew is back, at least as producers. Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens.
That's huge, right? Those guys, they live and breathe Tolkien. It gives me a lot of confidence that they're the ones overseeing this. And of course, Andy Serkis, not just voicing Gollum through motion capture, but actually directing. Man.
Seems like they found the perfect guy for the job. Think about it. Serkis has been building up his directorial chops. Venom 2, Mowgli. He's not just an amazing actor, he's got vision. He knows how to tell a story.
It's like this project was meant to be, with him at the helm. Makes me even more excited to see what he does with the hunt for Gollum.
Speaking of exciting, one question that's got fans buzzing is, will we see any other familiar faces alongside Gollum? I mean, the timing of the film, it opens up some possibilities.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. It's that period where characters like Gandalf and Aragorn are out there, but we haven't seen much of their early days.
Right.
This could be our chance to see them in a new light.
Exactly. Imagine seeing Aragorn as a young ranger, all those skills he had before he became the king.
The sources mention Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Thranduil, even Galadriel as possible cameos.
Oh, wow.
And some of the actors have even hinted they'd be interested in coming back to Middle-earth.
Like who?
Well, Ian McKellen, he played Gandalf, right? He said he's open to reprising the role, And Orlando Bloom, who was Legolas, he's even talked about using that AI de-aging tech to play a younger version.
No way. That's incredible. So we could actually see these characters as they were back then.
It's pretty wild, right?
What about Viggo Mortensen? He played Aragorn. Any word on him?
He's said he'd consider it, but it depends on the script being good and if the role makes sense for his age.
Fair enough.
Oh, and Cate Blanchett. She was Galadriel. She joked that she'd do anything for Andy Serkis.
Oh,
It was lighthearted, but you never know. Maybe a surprise appearance.
no, that would be awesome.
The idea of seeing those familiar faces along with Gollum, man, it just adds another layer of excitement.
For sure. But even if those big names don't show up, I'm also curious about what new characters the Hunt for Gollum will introduce. Every story needs fresh faces.
Totally.
Got to expand that world, right? Introduce some new folks to the audience.
You know what? This is what I love about this whole deep dive. We're not just like rehashing old stuff. We're putting together the pieces, speculating about what this film might reveal about Lord of the Rings.
It's like we're on a quest of our own, discovering new possibilities along the way.
Exactly.
And what really gets me is this film has the potential to challenge how we see the whole Lord of the Rings story.
Really?
Yeah, it could give us a totally fresh perspective on characters we thought we knew. Show us their motivations, their struggles, in a new way.
It's like peeling back the layers of this familiar story and finding all these hidden depths.
Exactly.
All right, so before we get too deep into that, let's take stock. We're talking about a film set in a part of Middle-earth we've never seen before, told from the point of view of one of its most complex, most mysterious characters.
And it's being led by the same team that brought us the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, with the possibility of some familiar faces coming back.
Plus, it's going to explore the psychology, the themes of Tolkien's world in a way we haven't seen before.
This is shaping up to be something really special.
All right, but I have to ask, what secrets, what twists might The Hunt for Gollum reveal about Lord of the Rings? What's it going to add to how we understand this world?
That's the million-dollar question. It's what's going to keep fans guessing until the film comes out. And as we continue our deep dive, we're going to try to uncover some answers, digging into everything our sources tell us. You know, one thing that I find really fascinating about The Hunt for Gollum is how it could explore the psychological effects of the One Ring, like really deeply, in a way we haven't seen before. We saw how it corrupted Boromir, even Frodo for a bit, but Gollum
Right.
is the ultimate case study, right?
Yeah, he carried the ring for centuries, way longer than anyone else.
Yeah. Just imagine what that must have done to him psychologically.
It's crazy.
Think about it. Smeagol, he was once just a regular hobbit, carefree, probably.
Uh-huh.
But the ring's power just ate away at him. His mind, his body warped over like generations. The film could show us that. That slow descent into madness. The true cost of the ring's promises.
That brings up a good question. How are they going to show that duality? The Smeagol and Gollum thing. Tolkien really emphasized their internal struggle.
Oh, absolutely. Remember how Gollum talks about himself in the plural in the books? Like two beings in one?
Oh, yeah.
They could use voiceovers, maybe. Let us hear both Smeagol's thoughts and Gollum's. Their desires, their regrets.
I can almost hear Andy Serkis' voice now, shifting back and forth,
Right.
showing that inner turmoil. It's tragic, but fascinating at the same time.
Definitely. And speaking of tragic figures, we can't forget the other characters who might pop up. Given the timeline, I think we're bound to see Gandalf.
Yeah, for sure. He's got to be involved. His whole quest for knowledge about the ring, his concern for Bilbo, it all leads him to Gollum, right?
Right.
I'm really curious, though, how will they portray Gandalf in this? Will he be that same wise, reassuring figure we know from Lord of the Rings? Or will we see a younger, maybe even a little unsure Gandalf?
Ooh, good question. We know even Gandalf isn't totally immune to the ring's pull. So seeing him wrestle with the truth about Bilbo's treasure, the danger, it'd add a whole new layer to his character.
And we can't forget Aragorn. His part in hunting down Gollum, that's got to be huge for the story.
It's like a defining moment for him, shaping him into the leader he becomes.
Totally. This period in Aragorn's life, it's kind of shrouded in mystery. He's a Dunedain, descendant of Númenor, all that. Long lifespan,
Yeah.
special abilities.
But even he's got to face challenges, right?
Oh, yeah. For anyone who's not a lore master, being a Dunedain means Aragorn has this unique heritage. He's stronger, wiser, lives way longer than regular men.
Destined for greatness, but his path, definitely not easy.
And seeing him in these younger years, maybe facing doubts, man, that would be an awesome glimpse into what makes a king.
Absolutely. And the film could show us his relationship with Gandalf, how they work together to track down Gollum, the lessons Aragorn learns.
Yeah, it's a chance to see those ranger skills put to the test.
Tracking Gollum through the wilderness.
Speaking of wilderness, this film has a chance to introduce some new characters, new creatures too, right? Expand on Tolkien's world even more.
Oh, totally. We might see communities hidden away in the misty mountains, maybe even stumble across some lost ruins, hints of Middle-earth's ancient past.
I love that idea. It's not just about the characters and stories we know. It's about pushing the boundaries of that world, seeing those unseen corners of Middle-earth brought to life on screen for the first time.
And that's what makes the hunt for Gollum so exciting, you know?
Yeah.
It's breathing new life into this franchise, diving deeper into all that lore and mythology that people love.
Absolutely.
And you know what? That brings us to the people who are actually making this happen. We've got a killer team behind this film.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about the brains behind the operation. We've got veterans, new talent, all working together to make this film a worthy part of the Lord of the Rings legacy.
Having Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens as producers, that's huge. They understand Tolkien like no one else. They know how to bring his words to life.
They really nailed that epic scale, the little details, the emotion.
Yeah.
Everything that makes Middle-earth so captivating.
And then having Andy Serkis not only playing Gollum again, but directing, that's just brilliant. He's lived in this world, he understands that character so deeply, and he's shown he can direct.
It really does seem like the perfect fit.
His experience with motion capture, nobody does it better. He's not just acting, he's pushing the boundaries of how we tell stories in the digital age.
And you can just feel how passionate he is about this project. It's contagious, honestly.
Totally.
You know, I'm also curious about the screenwriters, Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papageorgi. They're relatively new compared to Jackson and that crew, but their work on The War of the Rohirrim, that animated film, people are talking about it.
Yeah, having them on board brings a fresh perspective to the hunt for Gollum. They clearly respect Tolkien's work, but they're also willing to explore, to push the boundaries a little. It's a tough balance, but it makes me think the hunt for Gollum will be both familiar and surprising. A story that stays true to Lord of the Rings while also, you know, going somewhere new.
I love that. But
Yeah.
even with a team this good, there's got to be challenges, right? Bringing Gollum's story to life, especially with all the fans watching. It can't be easy.
Yeah, right. Every film has its hurdles. The hunt for Gollum is no different. One of the big ones has got to be the special effects.
Yeah.
Gollum is a CGI creation. He has to look real, move right, especially after how amazing he was in the other films.
The technology has come a long way since the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but Gollum, he's so iconic.
Right.
His movements, everything.
People know him so well.
If they mess that up, it'll be noticeable. The expectations are sky high.
Thankfully, they've got Weta Digital on board.
Oh, good.
They did the original Gollum. They're the best in the business, always pushing the limits of what CGI can do.
That does make me feel better. I trust those guys to create a Gollum that's believable, that's captivating.
Me too.
But beyond the technical stuff, there's also the tone, right? Gollum's story. It's dark, it's full of loss. How do you balance that with the hope, the heroism we associate with Lord of the Rings?
That is the big question. It's a tightrope walk, for sure. They have to honor the darkness of Gollum's journey, but not lose sight of that hope, that resilience that's so important in Tolkien's work. Maybe they'll do it by contrasting Gollum's descent with glimpses of the beauty that's still left in Middle-earth, you know?
Oh, I like that.
Even in the darkest times, there are those little sparks of light.
Yeah, those moments of hope would feel even stronger against all that darkness, like a reminder that even when things are bad, there's still something worth fighting for.
Exactly. And speaking of fighting for what's right, we can't ignore the big question some fans have. Does the hunt for Gollum even need to exist?
Oh, yeah. I've seen that debate. Some say we already know Gollum's story.
Some people think there's nothing left to tell.
But what we get in the books, in the films, those are just glimpses, pieces of a bigger story. This film could show us those missing chapters.
Yeah.
See those events that made Gollum who he is, from his perspective. Understand the choices that led him down that path.
It's like getting a whole new piece of the puzzle, a crucial chapter in the story of Middle-earth.
And even if we think we know the ending, there could be surprises, new interpretations, details that Tolkien himself might have left for us to find.
Exactly.
It's like going back to a place you know well and discovering a hidden path. It leads you to a view you've never seen before.
And that's the beauty of adaptation. It's not just repeating what we know, it's finding new ways to explore the story, shining a light on those hidden parts.
Absolutely. And with this creative team, with their track record, their love for Tolkien, The Hunt for Gollum has the potential to be something truly special.
I think so too. It's exciting to see a story we know through fresh eyes, to dive deeper into one of the most fascinating, tragic characters in Middle-earth.
Okay, but gotta ask, what are your predictions? What do you think will surprise us? What are you most excited for?
I think the biggest surprise might be how much empathy the film creates for Gollum.
Oh, interesting.
We usually see him as the bad guy, greedy, malicious. But this film could show us his humanity, his vulnerability, his struggles, all the things that made him who he is.
I love that. Seeing him not just as a monster, but as a complex being. What about twists? Any theories?
Since the film's covering a time that the books don't really touch on, there's room for them to get creative. Maybe we'll see Gollum run into characters we've never met before, stumble across some hidden artifacts, some lost piece of lore that changes how we see Middle-earth's history.
Now getting me excited. So many possibilities. What about you personally? What are you most looking forward to?
I really want to see how they capture the atmosphere of Middle-earth. Tolkien's world is so detailed, full of wonder, full of danger. I hope the film transports us back to those landscapes, lets us really experience it.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm excited to see Andy Serkis' vision, how he uses his understanding of Gollum to create a truly memorable film. Well said. Feels like we've covered everything about The Hunt for Gollum. The story, the characters, the team, the challenges, the potential surprises. What a deep dive.
It really has been. We've explored how this film could deepen our understanding of Lord of the Rings, how it could show us a whole new era in Middle-earth, introduce us to a new side of Gollum.
And it's clear this film has the potential to be something really special. But before we wrap up, let's leave our listeners with a final thought, something to think about as we wait for The Hunt for Gollum to come out.
I like it. How about this? What if The Hunt for Gollum isn't just about searching for a creature, but about confronting the darkness inside all of us? What if Gollum's story, his addiction, his descent, what if it's a reflection of our own capacity for good and evil?
That's deep. It's like the real monsters aren't the orcs or the Nazgul, but the darkness in our own hearts.
Exactly. And maybe by facing those shadows, by understanding what drives us to make the choices we do, we can learn something about ourselves, about the world around us.
That's a perfect way to end this. A little food for thought as we eagerly await The Hunt for Gollum.
And remember, as Tolkien wrote, not all those who wander are lost. Maybe this journey into Gollum's past will help us find something unexpected within ourselves, too.
We've talked about the story, the characters, the challenges, but you know what I'm really curious about?
What's that?
The feel of this film. What kind of experience will it be, going back to Middle-earth with this new story?
That's a good question. It's not just the plot, it's the whole vibe. Based on what we've seen, I think this film could have a darker feel than the other Lord of the Rings films. A bit more psychological,
I'm getting that sense, too. A lot of the focus is on Gollum's inner struggle, that pull of the ring.
Exactly. And think about the setting. We'll probably see a lot of those desolate places Gollum hangs out in.
Yeah.
Like the misty mountains, those dark caves, maybe even Mordor. Who knows?
Right.
That's pretty different visually from the Shire, the forests, those sweeping landscapes we're used to.
It is, yeah. And wouldn't that darkness, affect the whole tone of the film? Emotionally, I mean.
Yeah.
Could be a more intense, even unsettling experience.
For sure. But that's actually what I find so interesting. That darkness. It could make those emotional moments hit even harder.
No, wait, explain that. How does darkness make things more emotional?
Think about it. When you focus on Gollum's isolation, his descent into madness, those moments of beauty, compassion, humor, they stand out more.
Oh, I think
They become these little glimmers of light against all that shadow.
like a single candle in a huge cave, right? It's all you can see.
Exactly. And if we do see those flashbacks to Smeagol before the ring, knowing what happens to him,
Oh, man.
it would be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
A reminder of everything he lost, that innocent hobbit swallowed up by the ring.
The idea of a darker, more intense Lord of the Rings story, it's actually pretty intriguing.
Right. It's a different side to Tolkien's world.
It shows us what happens when that ring takes over, but in a really raw way.
It's definitely a bold move for the filmmakers, but then, this is Andy Serkis. He's not afraid to go there, to explore those dark, psychological corners of a character.
Yeah, true. Think about Planet of the Apes. Those films looked incredible, but they also had that depth, those complex themes.
Exactly. And Serkis playing Gollum all those years, he knows that inner turmoil. It makes sense he'd want to bring that to the screen.
So the hunt for Gollum, it could bridge that gap between the epic fantasy of Lord of the Rings and those, like, character-driven stories we see so much of today.
Totally. And for those who are already Lord of the Rings fans, it's a chance to see everything from a whole new angle, to experience Middle-earth through Gollum's eyes.
It's like a journey into the shadows, right? Exploring those hidden parts of a world we thought we knew. And that's what makes this whole project so exciting.
It really is.
It's a chance to discover something new, something we didn't expect, even in a story as well-loved as Lord of the Rings. I think that's something we can all appreciate. Whether you're a die-hard Tolkien fan or just discovering Middle-earth for the first time, The Hunt for Gollum promises a unique perspective on this beloved world, a chance to delve into the darkness and maybe, just maybe, find a glimmer of hope within it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We can't wait to see what this film reveals about Middle-earth and maybe even ourselves.